Maddie and Steve, they set the stage. From classic bouts to the modern age. Every slam, every story, every legacy comes alive with wrestling pedigree. So tune on in, the spotlight's bright. The ring is ready on this podcast night. It's Wrestling Pedigree.
Welcome to Wrestling Pedigree. I am Steve Akins.
I'm Ryan Crawford.
I am joined by Ryan Crawford today. Today, Ryan and I are going to do something very near and dear to our hearts. WCW, to us, it was our childhood. Growing up through the late 80s to the 90s, especially with me having family from Georgia, WCW is a huge part of my childhood. So what we decided to do today is we decided to rebook the final few years of WCW in an attempt to save the promotion. So Ryan, first, let's talk a little bit about what WCW meant to you when you were growing up.
So when I first started watching wrestling, it was in Fallensby, West Virginia. So you got a mix of both the north of the WWF, which I guess now we'll call it WWE, and you got a mix of WCW because we were on that nice Mason-Dixon line where you got a taste of both. And if you stayed up late enough, just a little fun fact, the Spanish channel would turn into ECW. But you had to stay up till 3 in the morning.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So I remember that because it was the same up here.
So, we kind of grew up on that. When Hulk Hogan started the NWO and turned heel, that was a big deal for us. When Bret Hart jumped to the Montreal Screwjob, that was also a big deal. You would go to school and you would talk, your hour of WWF, and then you would get into WCW and what Ric Flair was doing. So it was a big part of my childhood. And I also feel over the years, people forget how good WCW wrestling was. And if you want to know that, think of the wrestlers you like to watch in WWE later. Your Rey Mysterios, your Eddie Guerreros, your Chris Benoits, basically, I think wrestling would not be where it is today without WCW.
I totally agree. Especially during let's say 94, 95, where WWF was kind of going more towards comedy characters, and a lot of their stuff was, it was meant to make you laugh, meant to be more family friendly. WCW was the old school wrestling.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what we would get each and every week, is we would get wrestling matches.
I completely agree. And even during the 80s, you had Ric Flair styling and profiling, aiming to more of an adult audience, where if you flip the station to Hulk Hogan, he's eating his vitamins and saying his prayers. So, it's definitely was geared towards more the wrestling fan and less towards, the moderate bubblegum. I would be the best way to put it.
Exactly. And speaking of Hulk Hogan, January 4th, 1999, we had the finger poke of doom, where Kevin Nash took a finger poke in the chest from Hulk Hogan, fell down, and Hogan won the WCW Heavyweight Championship from him. Now, to me, that is where the decline started. So that is where my rebooking of WCW is going to start. Now, to me, January 4th, 1999, the finger poke of doom doesn't happen. And we start from there. You know, Kevin Nash had just defeated Goldberg for the WCW championship before the NWO came back together, reformed as a whole. To me, what WCW should have done instead of that is they had these big up-and-coming wrestlers, guys that were going to be absolute superstars and Hall of Famers within the next few years. I'm looking at Booker T. The very first thing that I do is, instead of dropping the title from Goldberg to Nash, have Booker T beat Goldberg in a clean match. Start the Booker T era just a couple years earlier. That's going to give WCW a big, big kick in the ass. It's going to be more exciting. You already have guys that are starting to come up, like Diamond Dallas Page, obviously Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko. Guys like this at this time should have started being the cornerstones of WCW. You know, let the old guard out. Ric Flair, he's Ric Flair. You can't kill Ric Flair, especially in WCW. At this time, he had kind of started to take a step back. You know, bad booking decisions were one of the big reasons he decided, yeah, I'm going to step back. And I can't blame him for that. But to me, ultimately, the very first thing that we do, give Booker T that strap.
I'm going to take it in a different approach.
Okay.
I'm going to say to you, understood, we want to build our younger talent, and Booker T was coming up. If you look actually at that card on from that Nitro, we had Booker T facing Scott Steiner for U.S. title. I like that, but I also think that is a 1PL feud. We cut that and we get somebody to work with Booker T that's more his style. I know you as a WCW fan is going to tell me you remember the barn burner seven series they did with Booker T and Benoit.
Yep.
So we get somebody. I say we keep the U.S. title on Booker T, but we're gonna put him in the ring with Bret Hart. Bret Hart isn't even on this card, and we have Bret Hart. We have the best technical wrestler. I mean, arguably up the air with the Rick. If WCW uses Bret Hart correctly, we put him up there with Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair.
Absolutely.
So I say, hey, that match with Goldberg and Kevin Nash, it still drew. I mean, that Starcade was still through the roof. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to tease the fans with the finger poke of doom. Because if you remember earlier in that Nitro, Nash comes out and says he's going to give Goldberg a shot tonight. And then Hogan comes out after saying he's going to run for president and it says that he's back in wrestling. And then Nash comes out and challenges him. Scrap that too. Hogan's still going to come back from his goofy presidential bid. But that's how we're also going to draw fans in, because we got big things going on the other channel. We got Mick Foley and The Rock. So we're going to take, and I know I'm kind of getting a little deep on you, but it all kind of wraps together, and that's what we need to do. We're building a story. That's why I kind of disagree with just throwing the strap on Booker. Let's build Booker with a name like Bret Hart. He comes over on Bret, and then we put him in the ring with Goldberg, who's going to win the strap from Kevin Nash, win it back from Kevin Nash, and we're going to do it like this. Same thing happens. Scott Hall still tries to interfere, but Goldberg overcomes as the super baby face he is. He wins the belt back. Now we're back to building that momentum on Goldberg. Eventually, Bret Hart has to put over Booker T. Booker T faces Goldberg. Now we have two super faces vying for the belt that can move.
Okay.
What do you think?
All right. I like that. I like that. Let's get on to let's go a little bit deeper, I guess. At this point, to me, the NWO had run its course.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the NWO was essentially dead in the water at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I say kill the NWO. They brought them back as the NWO Elite. To me, it didn't work. I say at this point, NWO is dead and gone. And I hate to say this, but kind of the same with the Four Horsemen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you didn't have Arn in the Horsemen anymore. He had retired. He had given up his spot,
Mm-hmm.
as we so famously know. You had Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit. Let's see, Brian Pillman at one point. Sid at one point. You know, they were all vying for a spot in the Horsemen. I say at this point, kill the Horsemen and let's build something new. Don't rehash old ideas. Something completely new. You know, you've got Bret Hart coming up. Put a couple of younger guys under him. Let Bret be the new Ric Flair. Let him build the future.
So now I'm going to throw something else at you and see what your thoughts are. So I did some research, and the opening match, well, not one of the I think it was third on the card, was Perry Saturn versus Chris Benoit. Now, what they were doing, yeah, I know. Like, how this tells me WCW at the time, this tells me they had a good foundation, but they were snap booking. Like, okay, look what's going on. They were worried too much about what's going on the other show. Let's worry about what we got. They had a great idea, and I'm going to see what you think about this. Because what you just said is what they did, but they just fumbled it worse than a high school running back. And they were having Benoit versus Perry Saturn to pull Perry Saturn from the flock and start. Now this one's going to really throw you. Revolution.
Oh, yep.
You had Shane Douglas, Perry Saturn, Chris Benoit, and Dean Malenko. And the only thing they did wrong with that, instead of saying, okay, let's let these, and the storyline for that was great too. Because you had them saying, look, we're sick of WCW holding us down for the Hogans, for the Flairs, we are now teaming up and we're taking over. Let these guys take over. Let them.
I agree.
What if it was the Revolution that disbanded the NWO? What if we let Goldberg get his belt back, Nash then teams back up with Hall because Hall tried again, and they get jumped by Revolution, starting a feud
That's
there.
a really good take on that.
It's just a
I
thought.
really like that. But you know who else was really, really strong at this point? Was the Jersey Triad.
Yes.
Diamond Dallas Page, Bam Bam Bigelow, and Chris Kanyon.
Yes.
They had taken over WCW. They had the Freebird rule going on, swapping their titles back and forth between each other. That was a great storyline for all three of those guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something that I would have stayed with. I would have kept that group going. Hell, maybe put Bret with. You can't really put Bret in with the Jersey Triad because, he's Canadian. But maybe kind of have them absorbed under Brett.
Or Brett starts. Who is the biggest complainer about upper management? Bret Hart.
Bret Hart.
He had just got screwed in WWF. And what way of having him come out and say, look, I know what it's like to be held down by upper management. You all saw what happened to me in 98. And he goes, I'm not going to let that happen to this great group of wrestlers. And we have Bret Hart lead Revolution to the top as the veteran mentor, as what Ric Flair and Arn Anderson did with the kind of newer horsemen, with Benoit, except for I was never a big fan of Mongo McMichaels. I'm sorry, God rest his soul. He had his purpose, but his in ring was just way too over the top for me. But what they did with Mongo, like, come on, Mongo, you don't have to sell a slap that hard from Deborah. Like, you know what I mean? But that's the way I see it. I like I said, I think WCW had a great foundation. It was just, I'm going to call it snap wrestling. Like, just, we're in the words of the great, we're going to swerve you. Like, no, don't swerve me. Like, build something. And they had such a great foundation. Go ahead, buddy.
Especially toward the end of 1999, WCW hired Vince Russo as their booker. October 3rd, 1999. And I just want to add, fuck Vince Russo.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, nothing made sense. The title was vacated. Bret Hart won it. Then it was vacated again. Then Bret won it again. Then it was vacated again. Then Benoit won it. Then vacated. Sid won it. Vacated. Sid won it again. Vacated. That was all between the end of 99 and the very beginning of 2000. Yeah. So one of the things that WCW does not do, don't fucking hire Vince Russo. There's a reason Vince McMahon was willing to let him go.
Vince is good with somebody. The Attitude Era worked because he had Jim Cornette on the other side of the table with him, telling him he's an idiot. And he had... And I'm not even the biggest Jim Cornette fan. He's okay. But they both had Vince saying, okay, I like that. That sticks out. Or no, we're not doing that. You're ridiculous. So, you know what I mean? It also, it worked. So him to come in and just kind of be like, the reins are yours. Run with it. He ran it into Viagra on a pole matches and Judy Bagwell on a pole matches. And
Judy Bagwell on a forklift.
That was we laugh about it now, but back then we were thank you.
Now, one of the big things in WCW, the thing that got everybody watching, like from the very beginning of the broadcast, that first hour of Nitro with the cruiserweights. The cruiserweights are what made WCW exciting. You've got your Juventud Guerreros, La Parca, Eddie, Ray, Shannon Moore, Evan Courageous, Shane Helms, 3 count.
Billy Kidman. Billy
Kidman. And
yeah,
he couldn't always hit that shooting star press, but when he did, it was an absolute thing of beauty.
Oh, it was great. It was all like it was good stuff. Like watching those guys, and because it wasn't one of those like you want to talk about a shock factor. It was just watching them work. It's like, what are they going to do today? And because you had 6 guys flying at each other over the top rope, or you have Rey Mysterio hitting a Hurricane Rana, and I know Scott Steiner would put me in the Steiner recliner for not calling it a Frankensteiner, but hitting a Hurricane Rana like no tomorrow. It was awesome. And the only thing I would do different with the cruiserweights is you never really had a story.
No, and that's one of the big things that I wanted to talk about is, give them a story. Yeah, you had little bits and pieces of stories like Dean Malenko dressing up as Cyclope.
That was awesome.
and winning that battle royal to go up against, was it Jericho? I believe
Yes,
it was
yes, it
Jericho.
was. That's
Yes. And
that's when Jericho
that,
stood in the middle of the ring and read off his holds.
his 1004 moves.
That was good stuff.
It's still to this day I can watch it and I can be amused because, it's Chris freaking Jericho and he's amusing.
Yeah. Chris Jericho. I mean, that was Chris Jericho building into one of the greatest wrestlers we've seen today. That was the start
Right.
of it. And he did that without anybody backing him, just being like, I'm going to take this shit sandwich you gave me and I'm going to make it into something.
Yeah. But now we're in the year 2000. And at this point, Time Warner is talking to AOL about a merger.
Mm-hmm.
And AOL is saying, okay, well, if we do this merger, we don't want wrestling on our TV. And they were like, okay, well, no, we'll look for a buyer. Eric Bischoff wanted to buy WCW.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, no. But
He didn't have a channel.
I think, no, he didn't have a channel. And that's why there was pretty much no chance in hell of him getting it.
Mm-hmm.
But my idea, we're 2 years away, 2000 to 2002. We're 2 years away from the beginning of NWA TNA, where Jeff Jarrett and his father, Jerry Jarrett, started it. Maybe Double J and Jerry talk to Eric Bischoff. Say, hey, we've got this idea. We can get the TV. Let's split it up somehow. You can do the creative. We run the company. And of course, Jeff still wants to wrestle, so give him a title.
That's always gonna, when it comes to Jeff Jarrett, that's always got to be in the books. Some way Jarrett's getting
Absolutely.
the belt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jerry, I love the idea because Jerry wasn't a bad booker himself.
No, Jerry was fantastic.
And I think we wouldn't be getting finger pokes of doom if you had somebody like Jerry. Well, I don't think we can do that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think Eric needed a Kevin Sullivan or
Yes.
somebody to say, hey, man, this ain't going to work. Kevin Sullivan was a wrestling booker. That's also what helped. I mean, what he did, he even booked himself well. I loved him versus Brian Pillman.
Oh, yeah.
In the respect match.
And like we've talked in depth about how much we love Kevin Sullivan on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Even talking about the Dungeon of Doom and the Alliance to End Hulkamania, all the crazy shit that he did. He booked himself so strong, but he always booked himself to lose, which is fantastic. It's what a booker should be doing. You don't want to push yourself. You want to push the product. You want to push the people around you. You want to make everything better.
Fast forward.
That's something that Kevin Nash didn't do. Kevin Nash booked himself to be one of the top guys. That's something that Russo didn't do. Russo booked fucking David Arquette to hold the WCW championship for 12 days.
And himself.
He then turned around and booked himself to hold it for a week.
These guys, it was cringy, I guess is the word for that. Now they've reached cringy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one thing as a fan, it's the card that brings you in. And the whole, and WCW would always promise you the world, but then just not deliver. We're going to swerve you. You thought we were going to give you this awesome match that you were like, yeah, I want to see that. And then all of a sudden you're watching some guy lay on the ground and Hulk Hogan spray painting a belt. Like that's not what I came here to see. Like, I'm watching a wrestling show. Like you're veering. And that's why even on the end, you heard WWF say, we're going to end this show with what got you to the dance, Sting versus Flair.
Right.
So
like that was the first and the last match on WCW Nitro was
yeah,
Flair versus Sting.
you could have even Hogan versus Flair. I mean, geez, that Bash at the Beach where they did that first one, that drew. I don't think I mean, that's why I was saying, okay, bring Hogan back from his presidency, but have Ric Flair interrupt it and say, hey, we still got unfinished business. You tried to kill my career. And then let those guys bring in those old time viewers, but then say, oh boy, look at this Booker T guy. I'd rather watch, and now we've came for Hogan and Flair. We're staying for Booker T.
Right.
But, we weren't getting that. We were just getting Hogan and Hogan.
Yeah.
Dropping
Essentially.
dropping the leg. That's what we were getting. So.
But one thing that I think WCW did do right to an extent is their involvement with celebrities. Bringing in somebody like Dennis Rodman to join the NWO, bringing in Karl Malone, like that. The match that those guys had with DDP and Hogan was fantastic.
Oh yeah,
and Rodman and Malone were not trained like at all, but they put on a great show and it was entertaining. Now we can't exactly say the same about Jay Leno.
Yeah, that was.
But I think that was more a cash grab.
Yeah, they were trying to get on. I get why they were doing it, because now you have your show on the Tonight Show.
Yes.
That was the main goal. We're going to put DDP and Hulk Hogan on the Tonight Show. Mm-hmm. And the Tonight Show was hot back then with Jay Leno. So in the end, did it work? Probably not. I mean, that was a super weird. I see, the image just comes in my head of Jay Leno. Remember when he's sticking his chin out and that thing was about the size of the camera? Like that image is, whenever I think of that match, that is just the image I get of Jay Leno versus, beating on Eric Bischoff with his terrible punches. But I mean, to your point though, we just got a spot on the Tonight Show for free.
Yeah.
So,
and I think WWE kind of did the same thing when Jelly Roll took over. I think it was the Tonight Show for a night, and they had everybody that was involved in that match there. They had Logan Paul, they had Drew McIntyre, and they had Randy Orton. So I think WWE very much followed what WCW did with that.
That Eric Bischoff, I will say for his shortcomings, he also had a lot of good innovative ideas for his, for what he did during his time. I don't think without Eric Bischoff, me and you would be sitting here having a WCW podcast. We'd be, what I mean?
I can completely agree. I also don't think without Eric Bischoff, we would have had the NWO.
Nope.
However, I do think that because of Eric Bischoff, we had the NWO for too long.
Yes. He rode that he rode that till it was played out. That's where his inexperience came in. And he like, okay, man, like we're here. We've got to end this somewhere. And I also think he killed it by when the NWO was awesome, you had Hall, Nash, and Hogan. Now we're adding VK Wall Street. Now we're adding Big Bubba. Now we're adding, and he says he did it because he wanted NWO to become its own show. Yeah, right. You don't have that much resource. So I think if you maybe once DiBiase joins, because they did need a mouthpiece, and who better than the $1 Million Man himself? You stop it there. Okay, we're now going to run roughshod.
Yeah, but then after DiBiase, you had guys coming in like the Giant. You had Six. You had some good quality wrestlers come in, and I do appreciate what they did with the break between Hollywood and the Wolfpack.
That was good. Nash is fed up.
That was very good.
Yeah.
And I think that should have been the final nail in the coffin for the NWO. You know, have the Wolfpack versus Hollywood, have that come to a head, and then boom, NWO's done. We're
they
closing
imploded.
this chapter of the book.
Yeah,
Yes.
they imploded. They've killed themselves. They got too big for their britches and imploded. I love that. But and speaking of the Wolfpack, and shout out to the Macho Man Randy Savage. How good was that match at Stampede with Sting?
Oh my god.
That one had you on the edge of your seat. And then at the end, Nash comes out and power bombs Sting. Like that was because you honestly didn't think they were going to give it to Macho Man.
No.
And then, but of course, that doesn't work for me, brother. And Hulk Hogan comes out and takes the belt off him the next night, which ticked everybody off. That we can go back to their same terrible booking. Macho Man is now, Hogan was the head of the pecking order. What happens if Macho Man wins? We don't know now because you took the belt off of him.
Right.
Like that, it just goes back to that. They've got to be. That's the way. Reason I've been booking Nitro the way I have. What, in my eyes, what killed WCW to where you couldn't compete with Vince? You had no consistency. Things would just happen.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, that'd be like me turning on the Titanic and the boat just sinks. Okay. You killed the movie before Celine Dion even finished.
Right. Which I mean, technically that's not a horrible thing, but I digress.
Yeah. Come on, you're not a Celine fan? Bret Hart is Canadian.
I'll stick with Rush.
But yeah, that's my point. I think you add some consistency to WCW to where I want to tune in and see what happens next week.
Right. Now let's say this keeps going the way that it was in 99, 2000. 2001, they're looking for the buyer. The Jarretts pull up and they say, "Hey, we want WCW. We've got TV. Here's the check. Give us WCW." And they're like, "Okay, here's WCW." Now, fantasy booking. A lot of WCW guys went over to NWA TNA. I'm talking about, like, let's see. AJ Styles came from WCW and he made his mark in TNA. But then you also have guys that are coming up. Like you have CM Punk. You have Samoa Joe right on the cusp. You have Christopher Daniels, Crowbar, a.k.a. Devin Storm. He jumped over to TNA. You've got Kurt Hennig. You've got Ron and Don Harris. Just so many guys jumped right over to TNA. So why not just close the gap? TNA is WCW. The Jarretts buy WCW. They rebuild it. They build it up to what it could be. And they have that national TV. So you're able to see all these up-and-coming guys. You're able to see Elix Skipper versus AJ Styles. You're able to see Abyss just coming out against Christopher Daniels. You're able to, have this meshing of guys like Goldberg. Hell, let's do Goldberg against Abyss. That would have been a barn burner.
I would have loved to see Goldberg. in Abyss. I
I
think
would have loved that too.
Abyss would have been able to work with Goldberg's shortcomings on top of sell that can Goldberg topple this monster? And to your AJ Styles, I mean, he made the X division. Think of what
Yeah.
AJ Styles could have done with that cruiserweight title.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Samoa Joe coming up, I think he would have been we want to talk about Kevin Nash's booking. And do you remember Wrath?
Yes, of course I do.
Wrath was getting over.
Yep.
Wrath was coming out, and he was, the fans were pumped to see him. He'd come out to that music. He was almost building another Goldberg.
Yep.
And Nash comes out, Nash squashes him, the end of Wrath.
Yep.
So I think you could have probably done that same kind of rise, but nurtured it, put milk to the baby, but this time we're gonna do it with Samoa Joe. And then imagine we don't squash Wrath. We put Wrath against Samoa Joe, and that would have been something.
Oh yeah, that absolutely would have been. But imagine just for a second adding guys like Chris Sabin to the cruiserweights, adding AJ Styles in there, like holy shit.
AJ
CM
Styles
Punk at that point.
AJ Styles
CM Punk
versus
at
Rey
that point.
Mysterio.
Yeah, low key in the cruiserweight division in WCW would have been absolutely insane. Like, I would have loved to have seen that. Let's do low key versus Juventud Guerrera. I loved me some Juve. I loved Juve Juice.
Yeah,
I was
Juve.
my guy in WCW.
I loved Juve. You know what? I kind of liked Masked Juve. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but when he came out to that music, you know what I mean, and he was going to hit the Juve driver, that was good stuff.
Yeah.
So putting Juve again, you know what? I think of now like that young, scrawny CM Punk we were used to. Imagine putting him up against Juve.
Oh, that would have been fantastic.
The straight edge Punk.
One other thing we would have to talk about is at that point, TNA had a team that was showing why they were one of the best teams to ever be assembled. That's Mark and Jay Briscoe. Imagine Mark and Jay in the WCW tag team division.
Well, let's talk about
that. Imagine the Briscoes versus Chronic.
Throughout the years,
you saw how badly Chronic tanked in WWE against the Brothers of Destruction. But that's not all on Chronic. Yeah, they were absolutely squashed. I think they were booked badly. Put them up against somebody like the Briscoes. Let Chronic like dismantle the Briscoes. And then let the Briscoes come back and just be insane.
What I can say about the WCW tag team division is there wasn't any. I mean, most of the time you didn't have a Briscoes, you didn't have a Ron and Don Harris, you didn't have like a real one thing I like when I don't like to see singles guys team up and win the tag belts. It makes me sick. Right. It's like what's the sense of having tag belts if we're just going to use them as prop up singles guys to be like, oh look, they're friends and now they're going to hate each other. I hate that. One thing I like to see is a real tag team division. That's why even when they created the women's tag team division, I thought Iconic was great. Give them the belts. They are a real tag team. So what you're saying is music to my ears. If we could have added a Briscoes, Motor City Machine Guns, let's go Beer Money, and actually beefed
America's
up.
Most Wanted.
Yeah, and actually made a real, because WC, even in their prime, they had this. Well, I guess it's hard to say. I mean, you had the Steiners, you had the Outsiders, you had the Steiners. I mean, give me. You had Harlem Heat, I guess, but they killed that off.
Yep.
I'm trying, it's hard to really think of good WCW always lacked in a tag team division.
That they
And
really did.
so what you're saying is would have been great for them. Okay, let's make a real tag team division. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because WCW was notorious for that. Oh, we'll just put the tag belts on Conan and Ray until that runs its course, or we'll just put the tag belts on. Just give it to the outsiders. You know,
Yeah.
and and you had a tag team division with the Steiner brothers, or we'll give it to the Giant and Sting. Like, come on, like give me a tag team division.
Right. Yeah, like do something to make it exciting. Team up somebody like, oh, I don't know. Let's take from TNA. You could have very easily made a tag team with, let's see, let's throw a couple of names in here. Christopher Daniels and let's say Ace Steel. They would have been a great tag team.
Yeah. Yes. Come in, give them a nice tag name, build it up to where it's like, oh, every time I think of Christopher Daniels, I think of Ace Steel.
Yep.
And you know what I mean? Kind of like not just, hey, we're gonna put this together and until we're just, just two friends, that are singles guys just teaming up for a night. We're gonna have, you know what I mean? That just he drives me nuts. Like that's not what the tag belts were about.
Here's a good one that Jeff just shared with us. Said, looking from that era of WCW and TNA, I would have loved to have seen Rey Mysterio versus Amazing Red.
Oh, the Amazing Red was awesome back then.
He really was.
Amazing Red is one of the most underrated TNA guys.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he had a good hand in building that X division just as much as Styles did. Imagine him and oh man, it would have been sick to see him and Ray go.
Oh yeah, that would have been great. But then you also have guys like Lenny and Lodi, who they jumped from WCW over to TNA. Of course, Lodi renamed himself Bruce. That's neither here nor there. Yeah. But they were starting to get going as a good tag team, and they were fun to watch. That's another team that I would have loved to have seen pushed.
For me, just pushed so far. I mean, how much can we go with that? How far, how far can you go with Lenny and Lodi? I mean, it was a good. I mean, the comedy act was amazing, especially when you found out they were brothers. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
When everybody's like giving them the eyebrows, and then they're like, "Well, yeah, we're brothers." And then Dylan's like, "Yeah, we've have the Steiner brothers, we have Harlem Heat. What? Nobody signs their contracts like this." That was good stuff.
Yeah. But there's also another thing that they could have done at this time. Because if you look at the TNA roster from 2002, it has Bullet Bar Bob Armstrong, Scott Armstrong, BG James, who we all know as Road Dogg, Jesse James, Brian Armstrong. You could have made something happen with those three in a stable.
You could have easily, and they had Brad, but they fumbled Brad Armstrong terribly. You know what I mean? Like he did not have the look, but Brad was also there during Vince's time, and so the only camera time he got was Vince to make fun of him that he wasn't as good as BD James, pretty much. So,
right.
No, I think Brad Armstrong as a tag team wrestler with his brother, even during those times, would have been something we all would have watched. But let's put the Armstrongs out there. Let's see what they got.
Absolutely, they could have been the second coming of the Von Erichs.
For sure. Yeah. And that could have been another buyer for WCW. Their dad was very influential. Sorry about that. With the NWA. What if we give WCW back to the NWA?
And that's essentially what they would have been doing, selling it to the Jarretts.
Yeah,
because the Jarretts they opened up right away as NWA TNA before
Right.
rebranding to just TNA and dropping the NWA.
So
So yeah, essentially that would have been them giving it right back to the NWA and saying, "Hey, it's all yours."
and then the big gold belt becomes the NWA championship again.
Oh my god, mwah. Beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, man. I still watch the NWA today, and I think I love that idea. I think you create. So, I mean, we would have probably had Let's see it like we see it. We would have had quality wrestling again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really think Billy Corgan's done a great job with NWA.
Yes, yes. And shout out to our local New England talent. They are featured a lot on there.
Yes, they are.
So
Yeah, to me, the biggest things, 99, you want to make Booker T your champion. You want to accentuate on the cruiserweights.
mm-hmm.
You don't want to have all these title swaps. You know, back when I started watching wrestling, having that title was a big thing.
Yes.
I'm talking about the Hogan eras,
Mm-hmm.
the Bret Hart eras, even the Shawn Michaels era. 1999 to 2001. Look at this. This is all the title changes that happened from 99 to 2001.
Well, that goes to my big emphasis. Give me some closure. Give me some storylines. Give me, yes, give Booker T the title, but don't bash at the beach me. You know what I mean? Give Booker T the title. Let Booker T come out, topple Goldberg, really, and get a real title run. Like, oh man, can you believe Booker T just like think about it. You would have been sitting around a table saying, dude, Booker T did it. Not, oh well.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It would have felt real. It would, oh man, he did it. He did what they all couldn't. And then that would give him a real run to smash people out.
Yeah, I completely agree. So yeah, to me, that's the absolute best way to rebook WCW. Is you make your young guys the forefront. You know, the old guard, Hogan, Flair, even DDP to an extent, Sting. They're seasoned veterans at this point. Let them take a step down. Yeah, still keep them in the main event. They don't need the titles. Give the young guys the titles. Give your Benoits the title. Give Malenko a run with the title. Now, I know we were talking earlier. Malenko is the most underrated wrestler, probably of all time.
So bad. So bad. That guy, and they all I get it. He was not what you want on the mic. You know what I mean? Okay, take the mic from him. Okay, here's something I'm gonna throw at you. Who is available at those times? So WCW doesn't go down, but ECW does. You put Malenko with a Paul Heyman, and you know what I mean? Where Paul's speaking for Dean, coming out saying this guy's family's been wrestling for years, and you guys hold him down. He wrestles better, and oh man, that would build up a. Now Bret Hart's done with Booker T. We throw Malenko in there and say, you say you wrestle better than him. Come out and prove it. You're not the best technical wrestler. He is. And now we got an awesome feud.
Oh, that is fucking good.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I know I've been throwing around Bret Hart, but
yeah.
But you got a good talent.
One other thing we can think of is 2002. You know who was on the TNA roster as a manager? Percy Pringle.
Oh, wow. Wow. You're going, he would have, he would have killed it. He would have came out there.
Now, for those of you listening who don't know the name Percy Pringle was Paul Bearer in the WWF.
Good stuff, man. But Percy Pringle, So a lot of people would probably use to the, oh, my Undertaker, but Percy could go on the mic. It wasn't
Oh
just,
yeah,
we're getting Percy Pringle who could stand up on the, take bumps on the ringside and things like that. We're not getting the walking slow Percy Pringle. But a lot
right.
of people don't know him as that guy who could flow on the mic.
And he was so good, and WWE never showed it. They showed him as, that exactly what his name implied. They showed him as a pallbearer.
Mm.
They showed him as a mortician.
Which even then, I mean, I would still say that, that section of, Undertaker, Mankind leading into Kane was great work by him. I mean, that
Right.
screaming, that screech he did, screaming Kane's coming, man. You, as a kid, that sent chills down my spine. Like, oh man, what's he talking about?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So his work is just, I know we're kind of veering, but we just want to make sure everybody knows his work's amazing. So to put him with a Dean Malenko, somebody who can move, it would have been just classic.
Yeah.
He sure
But
wouldn't have
yeah,
turned into 007.
to me, that's what you do. Build Booker T up, build up the cruiserweight division, make your young guys the focus of the whole promotion. Getting more towards the AOL Time Warner merger, look for a buyer. Sell it to the Jarretts. Let the Jarretts take what was going to be TNA and make it WCW. Let that live on. And, would we have the same TNA that we have right now? No, we absolutely would not. But I think this would have kept the WCW name going for a lot longer. And who knows, if that had happened, maybe we wouldn't even have an AEW. Maybe we would have an AEW. It would be great if we did. We would have 3 companies competing, which is something that hasn't been seen in years.
I can say there was a time after WCW when WWE didn't have competition and they got stale. I can say WCW stays at the caliber they were, we would have never had a stale point because you would have had to have kept going. The main point of our rebooking was to show we're competing with a great product on the other channel. The Rock versus Mankind, even if we go off the show we talked about today. If we keep a show where it is consistently competing, that also means that great TV you got in WWF is going to have to jump its game too. So I think we just get quality wrestling out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what Jeff just said, from the time Goldberg lost the title in 1998 to the closing of WCW when it was purchased by WWE, the heavyweight title reign never exceeded 4 months with any champion. And Jeff said, I lost interest very quickly in WCW because of this. I completely agree. Like, I just showed that insane graphic of how many title changes there were. But I'm not even talking about how short some of the title changes were. See, Sting, less than a day. Savage, 1 day. Benoit, 1 day. Sid, 1 day. DDP, 1 day. Jeff Jarrett, 1 day. Then you have 5 days in here. You have 7 days in here. You have 8 days in here. You have 6. In the final, right up until Scott Steiner held it for 120 days before he lost it to Booker T on the last Nitro. Of those last 3 years, he was the longest champion. 120 days. That's 4 months.
You always hear
fucking months.
You always hear the belt's a prop. Yes, It is, but it's not like that kind of prop. The belt helps make the wrestler. And if the wrestler is just holding the belt to be like, look what I have a title reign, it doesn't make anything. It just makes it a joke. Like, oh, and you need a main event. So it's just, it was trash. That's all. That's the only word I can use for it. Trash.
Yep. Yep. I agree. And that's what the last few years of WCW were. It was trash. It was overbooked. It was the storylines weren't being utilized. It got stale, and it left a gross taste in my mouth, which is, that's why I'm saying from January 4th, 1999, scrap the whole thing, rebook everything, build up new guys, let the old guard take a step back. Don't let Kevin Nash have the book. Don't hire Vince Russo.
Nope.
Make WCW what it was during the Attitude Era, when it was going head to head, beating WWF Raw in the ratings for 83 weeks. No, keep that momentum going. Let it be exciting again. Let it be fun again. Let us sit here. Let us be sitting here in front of our TVs going, okay, click. Okay, I'm on USA. Click. I'm on TBS. Click. I'm on USA again. Oh, what's happening over on Nitro? Oh, I want to know what's happening on Raw. Let us flip back and forth again. God damn, I hate being stagnant. I hate sitting there watching one TV show at a time. I fall asleep. I will be completely honest. I fall asleep.
How awesome was it that first hour of Nitro you spoke of? It started before Raw. Raw wouldn't start till 9, and Nitro would start at 8. So you had 1 hour of
Yes.
just drawing me into being like, I don't even want to switch. And
Yep.
you know what I mean? It was okay. There's nothing going on. Click.
Yeah. Oh, nothing going on in WBF. I'm going to switch back over to Nitro. Awesome.
Yep.
Keep that going. Like, they did the internet wrestling community a disservice by just overbooking everything.
Yep.
Or the wrestling community as a whole. They did us a disservice by overbooking everything, underutilizing storylines, giving people the book that shouldn't have had the fucking book. I miss WCW. I miss WCW so much.
Same.
And I could sit here and talk to you about WCW for absolute hours. But we've almost hit the 1 hour mark. And I think it's about time for us to go home.
Yes, sir.
So, with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. Ryan, do you have anything to plug or promote?
I will be at Limitless Wrestling this Friday in Portland, Maine. I just want to plug local New England wrestling. Support your local wrestler.
There you go. And guys, you can find me on Facebook under my government name, Steve Akins. You can find me on X under pedigree_Steve. Find me on Instagram under So Many Tragedies. You can find me here every week on the Wrestling Pedigree. If you are at all interested in joining MWL, my prediction league that I help run, send me a message, send Maddie a message, send Jeff Chadwick a message, which he will be coming up in about an hour with the Wrestling Roundtable. Justin Marchesini, Sean Bowley, send any of us a message. We'll get you in. We're getting towards the end of our season. However, there's always time to come in. Build your character, get into storylines. As we get into next season's going to be a lot of fun. I'm just going to straight out say it's going to be a lot of fun. Send one of us a message, and we'll be sure to get you in. And one other thing that I do want to plug and promote, is, as you may be seeing right now, we have a ticker going across the bottom with our new merch store, wrestling-pedigree.myshopify.com/. Get your Wrestling Pedigree shirts. We've got Wrestling Pedigree hats on there. Anything having to do with MWL, Forever Boston Sports, the Wrestling Roundtable, all of us in the Wrestling Pedigree family. You can get all of your merch there. Get a hold of me anytime. Get a hold of Sean, Jeff, Justin, Maddie. We'll all point you in the right direction to get into MWL. And guys, tonight was a lot of fun trying to save WCW. I enjoy wrestling, and guys, my biggest commandment: just enjoy wrestling.
And don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.